Welcome to TSHL 101, where we're joined by someone whose career spans education, law enforcement, technology, community service, and now statewide advocacy for older Texans. Ira Wilsker is currently serving his fourth term as a member of the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature, representing the Southeast Texas Council of Governments. Over the years, he has contributed his expertise to the criminal justice, elections, and credentials and technology committees. Ira's professional journey is remarkable. He has an MBA from the University of Maryland, following a BSBA and an AAS from the same system. He is a retired full-time faculty member at Lamar Institute of Technology, where he served as an associate professor of management development. His service extends beyond the classroom as a graduate of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Academy, a longtime volunteer arbitrator with nearly 5 decades of service. He is a Dan Bell Award recipient and a dedicated board member of Boys Haven of America for over 22 years. Now, many of you listeners will also remember Ira from her 17-year run hosting My Computer Show on KLVI Radio and his 15 years writing the weekly personal technology column for the Beaumont Examiner. His life has been one of deep commitment to community education and public service. A widower, his late wife Donna was an associate professor of nursing for nearly 50 years, and he is the father of 4 daughters, 3 of whom teach college, and a grandfather to now 7 granddaughters, correct?
1 grandson finally broke the record.
All right, there you go, 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson. And as he likes to say, he has spent many years swimming in estrogen. He's going to join us to discuss several resolutions that he has authored or supported in the TSHL, each focused on strengthening protections, clarity, and care for Texans age 60 and older. Welcome to the program, Ira.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great introduction, Gary. Thank you. Ira, you have vast experience in many fields, as Gary just mentioned. Was there a particular aging experience that inspired you to bring your talents to the TSHL? And secondly, how do you research the resolutions that you write?
Okay, the first part is what influenced me. I had, in my law enforcement side, one of the things that I did, being the first computer forensics examiner in this area many years ago, dealing with some of the financial crimes and scams, the Nigerian, 419 scams and things like that. But people whose bank accounts got emptied because of, hijacking or malware. And I had a lot of empathy for some of these people who literally, seniors who lost their life savings and were now really, mentally hurt, depressed, worried even about things like suicide and stuff. Like I said, when I saw how these seniors were being victimized, I said, we need to do something about that. So a lot of the work I did on both sides. I did the pedophiles on one side, the people that were targeting seniors on the other side. And I said, that's very appropriate. My oldest daughter, also a lot of the people from Harris County in TSHL worked with my oldest daughter, who was a lawyer and also a senior advocate. And so she'd tell me stories, she'd call me for some advice, or I'd call her for advice. And I kept noticing how, even to the point of being endemic, and how targeted seniors are because of their vulnerabilities, their trust, and things of that nature. And I said, we need to do something to protect these people from having these miscreants take unfair advantage of them. And even, cases here, in Southeast Texas, it was one thing, for the, the violence, the domestic violence issues where seniors are often targeted, everything to, taking their Social Security money, family members and things. And I said, I know we can't physically put an end to it. We can at least try to harden our seniors to make it more difficult and to reduce the rate of victimization.
Ira, I'd like to talk to you about the Continuing Education for Judiciary and Law Enforcement Resolution. That's SL004. Yeah, let's talk about how requiring continuing education rights for judges, prosecutors, investigators, and law enforcement officers on issues that would affect older Texans. What gap did you see that made this resolution necessary?
Okay, most of my 29 years with the Sheriff's Department, I spent teaching in the various academies. Plus, I traveled around the state and even nationally teaching, law enforcement, doing a law enforcement in service. And one of the things I noticed was several years ago, what was then called TCLOS, it's now TCOL, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, Officers Standards and Education. There was a new training module, statutory changes as far as dealing with domestic violence. And requiring things like peace officers, requiring them to take a report at a minimum, and the training and the empathy. And I basically took that as the core for this, because I found in my law enforcement experience that too many of the peace officers and the JPs and the judges didn't seem to have the same degree of empathy for seniors as they did for others. Like I said, seniors are an easy target, for a variety of cognitive things and trusting and lack of technological knowledge. So we basically said that we need to train all levels of law enforcement and investigation on how to deal with seniors. We recently had, dealing with vision impaired and hearing impaired, and the alternative lifestyles, the LGBTQ community, but there's been nothing on how to deal with seniors. So I said, well, let's go ahead and codify this. So he came down with this resolution. Sharon Cooley helped me with it, one of the other legislators, and basically we need to take peace officers, JPs, magistrates, district attorneys, and give them the same training in dealing with seniors they've been required to have, like I said, with dealing with LGBTQ and things of that nature, so, and other minorities. So of course seniors aren't quite a minority here, but basically it was the same type of awareness training and understanding the differences. I mean, I went on cases where the peace officers just said, oh, she's too old, she doesn't understand what's going on, she can even make a good witness, so why even take a report? And I thought that was terrible. And so, like I said, you've got to take a report now on domestic violence cases. Let's go ahead and have the training on how to deal with the senior issues. So that's why we did this. I used the TCOL guidelines and their training, and I looked at the statutes mandating the training in the other, politically sensitive hot issues, hot demographic areas, and said, let's basically take that and apply it to seniors as well. So I just need to make sure those people who investigate, adjudicate, and prosecute crimes against seniors to make sure they are adequately prepared to do it, because right now many of them are not adequately prepared.
Nice. You got another resolution, SL 011, standardizing the definition of what is a senior citizen. I don't think anybody in the audience probably understands what that means. So if you would explain why you wrote that resolution, that would be great.
Because problem is there are contradictions in state statute as to what a senior citizen or elder or older person. Different statutes in Texas have different names and different definitions. And that has created a lot of confusion, a lot of ambiguity as to what a, quote, senior is. Starts out with the federal definition in what's called the Older Americans Act. It's been around now for almost 50 years. And the Older Americans Act, which, by the way, funds many of our agency for the aging and lots of the other, activities nationwide for seniors. But for the last 50 years, they've defined a senior citizen as age 60 and above. Well, that's the federal standard, and that's how a lot of these agencies are funded. But then when you look at the state statutes, things like the Texas Human Resource Code, the Concurrent Resolution 37 that created TSHL, and this Older Americans Act all define a senior as age 60 and above. But other state statutes define them differently. For example, the Human Resources Code, they define elder persons as 65 and above. Texas Government Code uses the term elderly individual at age 65. Texas Education Code defines a senior citizen as 65 and above, yet the law that created us in 1985, that created TSHL, said that we were to be the advocates of, the people age 60 and above. So what I found out was that when you talk to everything from prosecutors to investigators to JPs, whether it's going to be an enhancement for a crime against a senior or whatever, that these inconsistencies created a bunch of loopholes. So it just seems to me a common sense where let's go ahead and set a state uniform standard, and even the terms. Some state statutes use the term senior citizen. Some use the term senior. Some use the term elder. Some use the term older person. I don't care what word they use. Let's just standardize it as both the federal government does and the resolution that created us in 1985, created TSHL. Let's standardize it on age 60. So that way we will clearly know, and all these different agencies will know what a quote senior is, or whatever name they want to use for it, because this ambiguity has created conflict and problems. Where, like I said, under the penal code, a senior citizen, their words, is defined as 65 and above, yet another state statute defines it as 60 and above. So we need the standardization, the consistency, the continuity to define what it is. That'll eliminate a lot of this confusion. And we just asked the legislature to standardize, quote, senior citizen or similar term to define Texans age 60 and above. So again, there was this ambiguity in the statutes. And in my resolution, I cited the actual state statutes, by number and code. So anybody could easily see that, hey, wait a minute, we got a bunch of differences here. So I thought standardizing would get rid of a lot of this ambiguity.
Well, that's all the time we have for the first part of our conversation with Ira Wilsker. A special thank you, as always, to Gary Gerstenhaber for helping guide our questions and for continuing to bring such insightful and engaging guests to the program. We'll be back next Tuesday at 6:15 p.m. to finish this important discussion, and we encourage our listeners to visit the TSHL 101 page at myknct.com. There you can hear conversations with past guests and learn more about the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature and the vital work that they are doing for older Texans all across the state. Have a great evening.